My name is Sarah, and I live in California. I want to share with you a story about something very close to my heart, learning to speak better English in 5 months. I wasn't always good at English, and I struggled a lot. But this is the story of how I made small changes, met amazing people, and found joy in learning a new language. It all started when I was sitting with my best friend, Emily, in the park. She looked at me with a smile and said, "You know, Sarah, your English is already good, but imagine if you could speak like the people on TV." I laughed because that felt impossible, but something about her words stayed with me. I wanted to sound more natural, more confident, and really express myself. I didn't want to feel stuck anymore. That evening, I opened my notebook and wrote, "Goal: speak better English in 5 months." It seemed a bit crazy, but Emily always told me, small steps every day make the biggest changes, so I promised myself to start small. First, I found a podcast called Easy English Stories and decided to listen to it every morning. Listening became my favorite part of the day. I heard new words and phrases, and I would whisper along with the speaker, imitating their tone. At first, I felt silly, but it started to feel easier with time. One day, my younger brother Mike caught me talking to myself while I practiced. "Who are you talking to?" he asked, laughing. I told him about the podcast, and he said, "You sound like a character in a movie." It made me feel happy. That small compliment gave me the push I needed to keep going. After a few weeks, I realized that I was starting to understand English songs more. I could catch the words and phrases that used to fly past me. I remember singing "Shape of You" by Ed Sheeran while cooking breakfast. My mom came into the kitchen, smiled, and said, "Sarah, you've been practicing, haven't you?" I nodded proudly. One morning in October, Emily gave me the next great idea. She said, "Why don't you keep a journal, Sarah? Write down everything you feel or think in English." That idea felt both exciting and a little scary. But I knew Emily was right, it would help me get better. I started small, writing things like, "Today the sky looks so blue. I feel happy." After a few days, I wrote longer sentences, talking about my dreams and the things I enjoyed doing. Somewhere around the second month, I made another friend, Jake. He was from New York and loved reading books. "If you want to improve fast," Jake said, "you need to read out loud. It helps with pronunciation." So every night before bed, I read a few pages from Charlotte's Web. The first few days were slow, but I kept trying. Jake always told me, "Don't worry if you make mistakes. Every mistake is a step forward." There were days when I felt frustrated, though. Some words felt impossible to pronounce. I remember trying to say the word thoroughly, and it came out all wrong. I laughed at myself, but deep down, I felt like giving up. But then Emily called and said, "Sarah, You are already doing so much. You don't need to be perfect, you just need to keep going. In the third month, I tried something new, watching TV shows without subtitles. It was hard at first, but I picked a fun show called Friends. Joey's jokes and Rachel's sweet voice made me laugh. Slowly, I started catching their words without needing to pause the show every second. Watching shows made me feel connected, like I was part of their conversations. Emily also suggested something called shadowing. It's where you listen to a native speaker and try to repeat what they say at the same time. I used scenes from Friends and tried to copy them exactly. It was challenging, but it made a difference. My speaking felt smoother, and I started to sound more natural. By the fourth month, I felt bolder. I joined an online English speaking club with people from all over the world. At first, I was nervous, but then I remembered Jake's words, "Don't be afraid to make mistakes." I told stories about my day, and I listened to others talk about their lives. I made friends with Maria from Spain and Leo from Brazil. Talking with them helped me see that everyone is learning, and it's okay to stumble sometimes. One day in December, Emily invited me to a small party with some of her American friends. I was nervous, but she smiled and said, "You've got this." Sarah, I talked with her friends about music, school, and even shared a joke I had learned from Friends. They laughed, and that felt like the best gift. I realized then that English wasn't just a subject to study, it was a way to connect with people. In the fifth month, something amazing happened. My teacher asked me to present a project in front of the class. The old me would have panicked, but this time I felt ready. I remembered all the little steps I had taken: the podcasts, the journaling, the reading aloud, and the conversations. I stood in front of the class, took a deep breath, and started speaking. I didn't feel scared anymore. I felt free. After the presentation, my teacher said, "Sarah, your English has improved so much. What's your secret?" I smiled and said, "There's no secret, just a lot of small steps every day." My classmates clapped, and I felt proud of the journey I had taken. The 5 months flew by, but they changed my life. English became more than just words on a page, it became a part of who I am. I made friends, laughed at TV shows, and found joy in little things like writing in my journal. Emily always told me, the key to learning is loving what you do, and she was right. Now, when I look back at that first day in the park with Emily, I smile. The girl who once felt scared to speak English is now someone who loves talking, sharing, and learning every day. And the best part, I know that this journey will never really end. There will always be new words, new stories, and new friends to meet along the way. But now, I feel ready for whatever comes next. If you ever feel stuck or unsure, remember my story. Start small. Listen, write, read, and speak, even if it feels hard at first. Surround yourself with good friends like Emily and Jake, and don't be afraid to make mistakes. Every little step will take you closer to where you want to be. Just keep going, and before you know it, you'll be speaking English with confidence and joy. The months after my 5-month goal felt like a new chapter, but in many ways, the habits I had built stayed with me. Every morning still began with my favorite podcast. I had moved on to more advanced ones, but I always smiled when I remembered how awkward those early days felt. Now, English felt like a friend one that I had grown comfortable with. It was no longer something I feared, but something I welcomed into my everyday life. Emily always said that learning a language is like watering a plant. It grows slowly, but only if you take care of it every day. I loved that idea. So, even though I no longer forced myself to practice for hours, I made sure I still read books, wrote in my journal, and watched TV shows. Little things like these made my English grow without me even noticing. One day, something exciting happened. I got a call from Maria, the friend I had made from Spain. She said, "Sarah, I'll be visiting New York next month. Let's meet up." I was thrilled. The idea of meeting her in person felt like proof that learning English wasn't just about words. It had opened doors to new friendships and adventures. I immediately said, "Yes, let's do it." When Maria and I finally met, we spent hours talking. We walked around Central Park, ate delicious food at tiny cafes, and laughed at silly things we saw on the streets. I realized something amazing that day. I was no longer thinking about what words to use or worrying about making mistakes. The words just came naturally, like breathing. That's when I knew that all those small efforts had truly paid off. There were moments when Maria struggled with some words, and I helped her, just like Jake and Emily had helped me. I told her, "Don't worry. We're all learning." She smiled and said, "You sound like a native speaker now, Sarah. You're so confident." That compliment felt like gold. I remembered how scared I had once been, but now I was the one offering encouragement to others. After Maria left, I felt inspired to do more. I thought, what if I could help other people improve their English, just like Emily and Jake helped me? That thought stayed with me. And soon I joined a volunteer group that taught English to immigrants in my town. Meeting people from different countries, some from Mexico, others from China or India, felt like a gift. They reminded me of how far I had come, and I wanted to help them feel confident too. In one of our sessions, I met a shy boy named Alex, who had just moved from Brazil. He barely spoke and looked at the ground most of the time. I remembered what it felt like to be in his shoes. So, I told him, "It's okay if you don't know all the words now. Just speak a little every day, and soon it will feel easy. He gave me a small smile, and that smile reminded me so much of myself months ago. I also shared some of my favorite tricks with my students. I told them, sing songs you love, watch funny shows like Friends, write down your thoughts in a notebook, and most importantly, don't stop. Even when it feels hard, they listened with wide eyes, and I knew that, just like me, they would get there one step at a time. Around that time, Jake called me with exciting news. He had started a small book club where people from different countries joined to read English books together. You should join us, Sarah, he said. Of course. I said yes. Reading books together and discussing them felt like the perfect way to keep improving and make new friends. The first book we read was The Little Prince. I loved how simple yet deep the story was. During one meeting, Jake asked, "What does the fox teach the prince?" We talked about friendship and patience, and it made me think about my own journey with English. Just like the fox and the prince took time to understand each other, learning a language also takes time. But the result is always worth it. By now, English had become a part of my everyday life. I didn't need to remind myself to practice, it just happened naturally. I spoke to people at the grocery store, answered emails confidently, and even helped my little brother with his homework. One day, Mike said, "Wow, Sarah, you sound so grown up when you speak English." I laughed, but it made me proud to see how far I had come. As winter turned to spring, I realized that my 5-month goal wasn't the end of the journey, it was just the beginning. Every day brought new challenges, new words to learn, and new people to meet. But now I knew that I could handle anything that came my way. And the best part, I was enjoying the process. One sunny afternoon, Emily and I sat at the same park where it had all begun. She smiled and said, "You've come a long way, Sarah." "I always knew you could do it." I looked at her and said, "Thank you, Emily. I couldn't have done it without you." We sat in silence for a moment, watching the children play and listening to the birds sing. And in that quiet moment, I realized something important. Learning a language isn't just about words. It's about connecting with people, opening your heart, and finding joy in the little things. It's about growing, step by step, just like a tree growing taller each day without anyone noticing. So, if you're reading this story and wondering how to improve your English, here's my advice: be patient with yourself. Take small steps every day. Surround yourself with good friends. Don't be afraid to make mistakes. And most importantly, enjoy the journey. Because one day, without even realizing it, you'll look back and see how far you've come. As the days passed, life felt brighter in ways I never expected. English was no longer just a subject or a task, it had become a bridge to new experiences, friendships, and adventures. I found myself thinking in English sometimes, which felt strange at first but also exciting, like I was living in two worlds at once. One evening, I sat on my bed, flipping through my old journal. The entries from those first few months felt like little treasures. Some words were misspelled, and the sentences were awkward, but they made me smile. They reminded me how far I had come. I saw notes about words I struggled with, like thoroughly and enough, and remembered the day I finally got them right. It made me realize something important. Learning isn't about being perfect. It's about progress. A few weeks later, I received an email that changed everything. It was from my English speaking club. They were organizing a virtual storytelling competition, and the theme was a journey that changed you. The winner would get a chance to present their story to an international audience. Emily was the first person I told. "You have to enter, Sarah," she said excitedly. At first, I hesitated. But what if my story isn't good enough? I asked. Emily gave me a look I knew all too well. "Sarah," she said firmly, "you've spent months proving that you can do anything. Don't stop now." She was right. I sat down with my notebook that night, thinking about everything I had been through. And then I began to write. The words came easily. I wrote about the podcasts I listened to, the songs I sang, and the TV shows that made me laugh. I wrote about the friends I made: Maria, Jake, and all the wonderful people from the English club. I included the moments of frustration, the mistakes, and the joy I felt when things finally clicked. The day of the competition arrived, and I was nervous but excited. When my turn came, I looked at the camera and took a deep breath. "Hello, everyone," I began. "My name is Sarah, and this is the story of how learning English changed my life." As I spoke, I felt the same warmth I had felt at the park with Emily and the same joy I had when Maria complimented my English in New York. I shared my struggles, my triumphs, and the lessons I had learned along the way. When I finished, there was a brief moment of silence, and then the screen filled with applause. I couldn't believe it. People from all over the world had listened to my story and connected with it. Later that day, I got a message from Leo, the friend I had made from Brazil. "You did amazing, Sarah," he wrote. "You've inspired me to keep going." That message meant the world to me. Knowing that my story had touched someone else made all the hard work worth it. A few weeks later, I got another surprise. I had won the competition. The prize was an invitation to speak at an online conference about learning languages. It felt surreal. I remembered the girl who had once been afraid to speak English in front of strangers, and now here I was, preparing to share my story with people from around the world. The day of the conference arrived, and I felt both nervous and excited. But As I looked into the camera, I thought about everything Emily had told me over the months. Just speak from your heart, she had said. So I did. I told the audience about my journey, the mistakes I had made, and the friends who had helped me along the way. I told them how learning English had given me more than just words. It had given me confidence, joy, and connections with people from different parts of the world. After the conference, I received messages from people I had never met, thanking me for sharing my story. Some told me they had been struggling with their own language journeys, and my words gave them hope. Others shared their own experiences, and it made me realize that we were all connected by the same desire to learn and grow. From that day on, I knew I wanted to do more. I started a small blog where I wrote about my language learning journey and shared tips and advice. I called it Small Steps, Big Changes. It was my way of giving back and encouraging others to keep going, even when things felt hard. One evening, as I was writing a new blog post, Mike came into my room. Guess what he said with a grin? I signed up for Spanish classes. I looked at him in surprise. Really, he nodded. After seeing how much fun you had with English, I thought I'd give it a try. I felt a warm glow in my heart. It felt good to know that my journey had inspired someone close to me. Over time, my blog grew, and I received messages from people all over the world. Some shared their struggles, and others thanked me for encouraging them. I realized that every story, no matter how small, has the power to inspire someone else. Just like Emily and Jake had inspired me, I was now passing that inspiration forward. Looking back, I couldn't believe how much had changed in just a few months. The girl who once felt scared and stuck had become someone who loved learning, sharing, and connecting. English was no longer a challenge, it was a part of who I was. And the best part? I knew that this was only the beginning. Life is full of journeys, and learning a language is just one of them. But it's a journey that teaches you more than just words. It teaches you patience, courage, and the joy of connecting with others. It shows you that every small step matters, and every mistake is just another step forward. So, if you're reading this and wondering how to improve your English, my advice is simple: start small. Listen to podcasts, sing your favorite songs, watch shows that make you laugh, and write down your thoughts. Surround yourself with good friends, and don't be afraid to make mistakes. And most importantly, enjoy the process. Because one day, without even realizing it, you'll look back and see how far you've come. As I continued my language learning journey, I found new opportunities to connect with even more people. With the success of my blog, I received invitations to share my story at local schools and community centers. At first, I felt nervous, but I remembered the encouragement I had received from Emily and Jake. They had always told me, "You have a voice, Sarah. Use it." So I decided to embrace every chance I got. One sunny Saturday, I was invited to speak at a community event in a nearby town. It was a gathering of people from various backgrounds, all eager to learn and improve their English. As I stood in front of the crowd, I looked out at the faces of men and women, some older and some younger, all looking up at me with hope and curiosity. I took a deep breath and began sharing my journey. I talked about the importance of consistency and how even small daily practices can lead to significant improvements over time. I shared the methods that had worked for me, listening to podcasts, journaling, and watching TV shows. As I spoke, I could see people nodding, some even smiling as they connected with my story. It felt incredible to share something I had once struggled with and see it resonate with others. After my talk, many people approached me, eager to share their own stories and challenges. One woman named Fatima told me how she had moved to the United States from Egypt and struggled with her English. "Sometimes I feel like giving up," she confessed. "But hearing your story makes me believe I can do it too." I smiled and replied, "Fatima, you already have the strength inside you. Just keep going." That day, I made new friends, and we exchanged contact information. We promised to support each other as we continued our English journeys. I was amazed by the power of community. Everyone was there to encourage each other, and it felt like a beautiful celebration of learning and growth. Not long after that event, I decided to start an online group for language learners. I called it Global Voices, where people could come together to practice their English, share resources, and motivate each other. I set up a weekly video call where we could chat, play games, and even have themed discussions. The first meeting was exciting, filled with laughter and stories from people around the world. During one of our sessions, I introduced a fun activity where everyone had to describe their favorite food in English. I remembered how important it was to share something personal. When it was my turn, I spoke about my love for tacos. "Tacos remind me of family gatherings, laughter, and joy," I explained. As everyone shared their favorite foods, I felt a wave of warmth fill the virtual room. We were not just practicing a language, we were sharing pieces of our lives. As spring turned to summer, I noticed that my confidence in speaking English had grown even more. One evening, as I was helping Mike with his school project, I felt proud to explain things in English without any hesitation. "You know, Sarah," he said with a grin, "you sound like a teacher." I laughed, feeling a sense of accomplishment. I realized that the skills I had developed were now helping others too. Around that time, Emily and I decided to volunteer at a local library to help with their English classes for newcomers. I was excited about the opportunity to give back to my community. On our first day, we met a group of enthusiastic learners from different countries: India, Vietnam, and Nigeria. Each person brought their own story and motivation to learn English. One student named Priya was especially shy. She had recently moved from India and struggled to express herself. I remembered how I had once felt in her shoes, so I approached her gently. "Priya," I said, "don't worry about making mistakes. Just take your time with encouragement." She slowly began to speak up, sharing her dreams of becoming a nurse. I could see the spark in her eyes as she talked about helping others. As the weeks went by, Priya blossomed. She started joining our conversations, asking questions, and even sharing her own experiences. Watching her confidence grow filled me with joy. It reminded me of my own journey, and I felt grateful to be a part of hers. One afternoon, as we were wrapping up a class, Priya pulled me aside and said, "Sarah, thank you for believing in me. You have inspired me to keep trying." I smiled and told her, "You're doing the hard work, Priya. I'm just here to support you." That moment filled my heart with happiness. It was a reminder that sharing our journeys can light the way for others. As summer approached, I received another invitation to speak, this time at a larger conference focused on language learning. The theme was empowerment through language. I felt excited and nervous all at once. I knew this was an opportunity to share my journey on a bigger stage, and I wanted to make the most of it. The day of the conference arrived, and I stood backstage, waiting for my turn. My heart raced as I heard the applause for the previous speaker. When it was finally my turn, I stepped onto the stage and looked out at the audience. I took a deep breath and began. "Hello, everyone. My name is Sarah, and I'm here to talk about how learning English has empowered me to connect, share, and grow." I spoke passionately about my experiences, the friends I had made, and the lessons I had learned along the way. I shared stories of Fatima, Priya, and all the wonderful people I had met. The audience listened intently, and I could feel their energy and support. As I wrapped up my speech, I encouraged everyone to embrace their language journeys, no matter how challenging they may seem. "Every small step counts," I said, "and every mistake is a chance to learn. Together, we can inspire each other to reach new heights." The audience erupted in applause, and I felt a rush of joy. It was incredible to share my journey and inspire others to believe in themselves. After the speech, many people came to speak with me, sharing their own stories and thanking me for the encouragement. Later that summer, my blog continued to grow, and I started receiving messages from readers around the world. Some shared their struggles, while others celebrated their successes. It warmed my heart to know that I was making a difference, even in small ways. One evening, as I was reading through comments on my latest blog post, I noticed a message from a girl named Lena from Syria. She wrote, "Sarah, your story gives me hope. I moved to the US a few months ago, and learning English feels overwhelming. Thank you for sharing your journey. I felt a wave of compassion for Lena. I replied to her, encouraging her to keep going and reminding her that she wasn't alone in her journey. With each new message, I realized the importance of community in language learning. It's not just about individual progress, it's about lifting each other up and creating a supportive network. As summer faded into fall, I felt a sense of fulfillment. I had grown so much, and the connections I had made were priceless. I began thinking about the future and what I wanted to achieve next. The idea of writing a book about my experiences crossed my mind. I wanted to share my journey, the challenges, the victories, and the invaluable lessons I had learned along the way. One evening, while sitting in my favorite coffee shop, I took out my notebook and began to outline my book. I thought about the themes I wanted to explore: the power of perseverance, the beauty of human connection, and the joy of learning. I felt inspired to help others who might be struggling with their own language journeys. As I poured my heart into the pages, I realized that writing this book was not just a project, it was a continuation of my journey. It was a way to give back to the community that had supported me and to inspire others to keep believing in themselves. I wanted them to know that their stories mattered and that every step forward was a victory worth celebrating. With every word I wrote, I felt a sense of purpose. I imagined readers picking up my book, feeling inspired, and knowing they were not alone in their journey. I wanted to reach those who might feel lost or unsure, just like I once did. Months went by, and as I worked on my book, I continued to volunteer and connect with learners. I led conversation groups, shared resources on my blog, and kept supporting others in their journeys. My community of language learners grew, and it felt like a family, a vibrant tapestry of stories, struggles, and triumphs. One sunny afternoon, I was at the library helping out with an English class when I spotted Priya in the corner, reading a book out loud with a group of students. She was beaming with confidence, sharing her love for reading with others. I felt proud to see how far she had come. After the class, she came up to me and said, "Sarah, I just wanted to thank you for everything. You believed in me when I didn't believe in myself." Her words touched my heart deeply. I replied, "You did all the hard work, Priya. You are an inspiration to others." In that moment, I understood the true power of connection and support. We were all lifting each other up, and together we were creating a positive ripple effect. As winter approached, I completed my book draft. I felt excited yet nervous about sharing it with the world. With Emily's encouragement, I decided to self-publish. I knew it would take hard work, but I was ready to put in the effort. On the day of the book launch, I held a small gathering at the local library, inviting friends, family, and all the amazing people I had met along my journey. As I stood in front of the crowd, I felt a mixture of excitement and gratitude. I realized that this moment wasn't just about me, it was about everyone who had supported me along the way. With a smile, I began to speak. Thank you all for being here today. This book is not just my story, it's a celebration of all of our journeys. Each one of you has inspired me in some way, and I hope that this book can inspire others too. As I signed copies of my book and chatted with readers, I felt a sense of fulfillment wash over me. This was what I had dreamed of, sharing my experiences, connecting with others, and helping them on their journeys. And as I looked around the room, filled with faces of friends, students, and fellow learners, I knew that the journey was far from over. Language learning is a lifelong adventure, and I was grateful to be part of such a vibrant community. So, if you're reading this and wondering how to improve your English, or any language for that matter, remember that every small step counts. Embrace the journey, connect with others, and believe in yourself. Because in the end, it's not just about learning words, it's about creating connections and discovering the world through language. And who knows? One day you might find yourself standing in front of a crowd, sharing your own story and inspiring others along their journeys. Every word you speak, every story you share, and every connection you make will shape your experience in ways you never imagined. So take that first step and let the adventure begin.